Howdy, it's Jim Arado, and Elizabethtown is one of those little towns. It's kind of in the center of the state. I've always thought of it that way anyway. And we've stopped there a lot. I grew up in Owensboro. I went to Berea College, and this was just kind of a halfway point for us a lot. And we would stop there just for the heck of it on a lot of road trips. And it's a great town to stretch your legs in, if nothing else. It's got more going for it than that. But we would stop there a lot, just like I said, to stretch our legs, get something to eat, that sort of thing. But yeah, I have made this drive between Owensboro and Lexington, Owensboro, Berea, the Owensboro area. I've made this drive literally hundreds of times. I've heard other people say that drive can be kind of boring, and I understand that. It's very. You see a lot of country as you're driving. There's not a whole lot else to see. I enjoy the drive, though, but I always have my iPod stocked up with songs and podcasts and that sort of thing these days. But it's it's a 2.5, 3.5 hour drive, depending on where you're going and what part of which town you're going to. And I've just made that trip a lot. And I've always enjoyed stopping in Elizabethtown. It's just a nice town. They have a nice mall. The mall has changed a whole lot over the years. There used to be, I know back when we first moved back to Kentucky, there used to be a sandwich coffee shop in their food court. I think it was ran by a church. This would have been back in about '07. And I really liked stopping there. It was a nice little place, but it was only there for about a year or two. But we still go there for the fun of it sometimes too, even. And something that a lot of people don't realize is that Elizabethtown is just jam-packed with history. A lot of Civil War history too. And I didn't even realize that when we first kind of came to this area, when we first would stop and drive around this area. Yeah, it's just got a lot of history. And I wanted to make this video real quick just to pretty much point out a few of the, historic things that it has going for it. Yeah, this is us just kind of driving up and down the main drag in Elizabethtown, and we're making our way. Yeah, we'll be making our way to the Helm Cemetery, and we'll look at the Cannonball, which is in one of the downtown buildings, which is kind of a reconstructed kind of situation, but it's still pretty cool. But yeah, I just wanted to point some of that stuff out and show you what Elizabethtown has going for it. Yeah, hang out with us and check things out. These days, I like stopping in Elizabethtown. They do have a nice. Is it a Barnes and Nobles or a Books A Million? I can't remember, but they have a nice bookstore. It's always hopping, and they have a nice local section. Oh, there's Hard Knocks Games, and it's a kind of a big and very nice, roomy hobby shop. Not quite like the hobby shops I remember growing up as a kid, but kind of one of the newer hobby shops. They sell the card games, and they sell miniatures. I like to paint toy soldiers, and they sell the kind of what most people would think of as like Dungeons and Dragons miniatures. But they have, it's not quite the same as it used to be, but they have a nice selection of miniatures. And I like to go in there and pick out some miniatures. Again, I like to do the historical ones. But even at a shop like that, they're going to have, some stuff that I can definitely enjoy painting. I don't paint the dragons and that sort of thing anymore. But I'll always find, maybe a camel or some sort of a little figure that could fit in with, with a pioneer army or something. And I like to go there and check stuff out. And they've got a lot of paint and that kind of stuff. So that, yeah, I still like to hang out in Elizabethtown when I can. It's just a good town, and it's just it's just kind of a nice little place to stop to break up a 3-hour trip or more as you're going across Kentucky. Wanted to mention though too, let me go ahead because there's several sites we're about to hit. There's the Thomas Lincoln Cabin and a couple of other spots. The Helm Cemetery. There's also a cannonball from the Civil War that did some damage, and there's well, you can basically see it in downtown. So I wanted to go ahead and just start talking about those things as we're kind of getting going. The first stop we're going to make here in a little bit is the Thomas Lincoln Cabin, and this is actually something that's it's kind of out of the way. It's not something that, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's there. It's, it's got a connection to Abe. It's Abe's dad's. I mean, it's got that connection, but they don't. There's no big billboards, or they don't really advertise it extensively. And even getting there, it was kind of behind like a couple of shopping plazas. You have to drive back a road. There's a lake back there, and it's not easy getting there. You've got to look for it. But anyway, I wanted to. There is a historic marker out front that they've put out, and I just wanted to read that real quick. And it says, Thomas Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's father. Thomas Lincoln lived in Elizabethtown, Kentucky as a young man. In 1803, he was prosperous enough to pay cash for a 230-acre farm on Mill Creek in northern Hardin County. He also bought several lots in Elizabethtown. On one of those lots, he built the house that he and Nancy Hanks lived in after their marriage. Their daughter, Sarah, was born there in 1807. Thomas Lincoln was born in Virginia in 1776. He was the second of 5 children of Abraham and Bathsheba Lincoln. The family moved to Kentucky about 1782, settling in Jefferson County. Thomas was 10 when his father died in an Indian attack. Thomas had little schooling, but he became a skilled carpenter and cabinet maker. His friends described Thomas Lincoln as square-built and a large man of great muscular power. He was good-humored, lively, and cheerful. Abraham Lincoln probably inherited from his father his physical strength, athletic ability, amiability, and skill at storytelling. Thomas Lincoln worked hard, but was not ambitious. One friend recalled happiness was the end of life for him. Thomas Lincoln plied his trade in Hardin County for over 10 years. He worked for Samuel Haycraft Jr., building a mill and a mill race. He helped Hardin Thomas build a house about 1805. He also crafted the stairways, mantelpieces, and woodwork. He built a number of pieces of furniture. He was a solid citizen of the county, serving in the militia and helping build roads. By 1809, the family was living on the Sinking Spring Farm, where Abraham, named for his grandfather, was born on February 12, 1809. Thomas later moved his family to the farm on Knob Creek. In 1816, the Lincoln family moved to Indiana. About 18 months after the death of Nancy Hanks Lincoln, Thomas returned to Elizabethtown. Here he married widow Sarah Bush Johnston. Eventually, the Thomas Lincoln family settled in Coles County, Illinois, where Thomas Lincoln died in 1851. He was buried in Helm Cemetery. And then there's some notes. Thomas Lincoln was living in Elizabethtown when he made this cabinet for his sister Mary on the occasion of her marriage to Ralph Croom. You can see it at the Brown Pusey House, 128 North Main Street, Elizabethtown. I've covered that in my blog, by the way, KentuckyTravels.blogspot.com. I've taken some pictures, but I did not visit there this particular day. Also, it notes that this was the home of Hardin Thomas. The smaller portion was built in 1789. Thomas Lincoln helped build the larger portion about 1805. The original house stood on this site until 2009 when it was gutted by fire. How tragic is that? So anyway, we're kind of leaving that area. Again, there's a lake. This is a nice park, but it's right off the main drag there in Elizabethtown where we were earlier, and you have to kind of drive between some shops. You've got to look for it to get there. So, but it's definitely worth the visit. There was a sign on the door that it is open for tours. I believe, I want to say the first Saturday of the month. And right now with everything going on, I don't even know if that's accurate. But you might want to check that out before you go. But it's definitely something really cool to see in Elizabethtown. And next we are going over to the Helm Cemetery. And there is more history in the Helm Cemetery than just about anywhere else in Kentucky. That's debatable, but the Helms were very significant to Kentucky, and there's a very interesting connection to Mary Todd Lincoln and Abraham Lincoln at this cemetery. And let me just go ahead and start reading from one of the historic markers they've put. Also, if you go to the Helm Cemetery, it's behind a Wendy's. And again, there's no there's a historic marker, but you've got to look for the cemetery. It's out of, you've got to look for it. There's a Wendy's and a vet's office, and I've always parked at the vet's office. I think they're pleasant about people stopping to visit the cemetery. It's up on a hill. Once you get there, you'll see it. But from a historic marker at the Helm Cemetery, Governor John LaRue Helm, born July 4th, 1802, was the eldest child of George and Rebecca LaRue Helm. Although he excelled in academic studies, he had to leave school when he was 16 to go to work on the family farm. Soon he was appointed deputy clerk of the Hardin Circuit Court, where he became interested in the study of law. In 1821, Helm became a student in the law office of the Honorable Ben Tobin of Elizabethtown. He was admitted to the Kentucky bar in 1823. The next year, Helm was appointed county attorney in newly formed Meade County, located northeast of Elizabethtown, and he continued in this office for 16 consecutive years. In 1825, he was elected to the lower house of the state legislature and was one of the youngest members ever to serve in the General Assembly. He continued to serve in the state House of Representatives by successive re-elections for a total of 11 years. For 5 sessions, he was Speaker of the House, proving to be one of the most able presiding officers ever to fill that position. Helm continued his rise in Kentucky state politics by being elected to the state Senate in 1844. In 1848, Helm was elected Lieutenant Governor of Kentucky on the Whig ticket, headed by the Honorable John Jordan Crittenden. In this capacity, he served as the presiding officer of the state Senate in 1848 through 1850. Crittenden resigned his post July 31st, 1850, resulting in the succession of Helm as 18th Governor of Kentucky. Helm completed Crittenden's term until September 5th, 1851. The presidential election of 1860 and the ensuing events of the Civil War resulted in the most trying period of Helm's life. Although his personal sympathies were with the South, Helm never favored secession from the Union. He was open in his condemnation of the war, but was equally ardent in his opposition to acts of secession. The Civil War and its aftermath led Helm to change his political affiliation to the Democratic Party. In 1865, he was again elected to the state Senate, where he continued to serve with honor and distinction. As chairman of the Committee on Federal Relations, he led a successful fight for the removal of all restrictive and punitive laws against ex-Confederates, as well as offering a resolution for the benefit of the newly freed slaves in Kentucky. In February 1867, Helm received the nomination for governor of the Democratic ticket. He won a stunning victory at the polls by a majority of 42,000 votes. Helm's strenuous campaign, however, resulted in complete physical exhaustion. The high price he paid for the overwhelming Democratic victory was his own death at the age of 65. Helm died on September 7, 1867, after serving as governor for only 5 days, the shortest term of a Kentucky governor except for that of William Goebel, inaugurated on his deathbed after being shot by an assassin in 1900. And that is a story for another day for sure. And let me continue to talk about General Benjamin Hardin Helm. Son of Governor John LaRue Helm, was born at Edgewood, his grandfather's estate in Bardstown, on June 2, 1831. Residing at the family home of Helm Place in Elizabethtown, Helm completed his studies at the Elizabethtown Seminary by the age of 15. Directly following his graduation, Helm continued his education at the Kentucky Military Institute, and from there secured an appointment to the United States Military Academy. He would graduate ninth in his class in 1851 and be breveted as second lieutenant in the United States 2nd Cavalry. A promising career in the military was cut short, however, as Helm was only able to serve 6 months before he had to resign due to inflammatory rheumatism. Returning to Elizabethtown, Benjamin went on to graduate from the University of Louisville Law School and entered a law partnership with his cousin, Martin Hardenkofer. Acquiring a taste for politics much like his father, Helm was then elected to the Kentucky legislature in 1855 and was appointed the Commonwealth Attorney for the 3rd District of Kentucky in 1856. In that same year, he married Emily Parrott Todd. Helm's new wife was a half-sister to Mary Todd Lincoln, wife of future President Abraham Lincoln. In 1860, Helm accepted a commission in the United States Army as General Inspector of the Kentucky State Guard. Shortly after the Civil War broke out in April of 1861, the Helms were invited to the White House, where President Lincoln offered Helm a U.S. paymaster position with the rank of major. Helm was honored, especially since he had opposed Lincoln's candidacy, but ultimately cast his lot with the fledgling Confederacy. Helm was appointed colonel of the 1st Kentucky Cavalry Regiment in September 1861. This regiment received high acclaim for its actions, including being the rear guard during the Confederate retreat from Bowling Green and the guarding of the Tennessee River during the Battle of Shiloh. Helm was consequently promoted to brigadier general and saw action during the Battle of Baton Rouge. On January 31, 1863, he was ordered by Confederate President Jefferson Davis to take the place of the fallen Brigadier General Roger W. Hanson. He now had command of the 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 9th Kentucky Infantry Regiments, the 41st Alabama, and Cobb's Kentucky Battery. The unit was known as the famous Orphan Brigade because of its concentration of Kentucky units largely cut off from their home state. Few generals during this time could have led as many men so effectively. His leadership qualities fostered great admiration and affection, creating a wonderful bond between him and his men. After drilling under their beloved commander for months, Helm's brigade moved towards Chickamauga Creek in northern Georgia. On September 19th, 20th, 1863, the Confederate Army of Tennessee under Brigadier General Braxton Bragg attacked the Federal battle line. Helm's men quickly found themselves in some of the heaviest fighting, sustaining heavy casualties. Urging his men forward, Helm pointed toward the front and yelled, "This is the road to Kentucky," and was wounded at the moment by troops of the U.S. 15th Kentucky Infantry Regiment. Helm had been shot through the liver and was told that there was no hope for a recovery. Lying there waiting for death, he received word around midnight that the Federals had retreated and that the Confederates held the battleground. He smiled, whispered victory, and was gone. And there is actually more on that side, and there's a lot more information about the Helm family, but just so you know, the Lincolns, Abraham and Mary, both mourned the death of Lincoln's dead Confederate brother-in-law, and that's a very moving moment in the Civil War. His widow was given safe passage to visit them at the White House. Incredible story in its own right. I could go on and on about that one, but yeah, they're at that Helm Cemetery, lots of other family, and several great Kentucky names there. And we have moved on now to a different cemetery, and I wanted to mention that real quick. And this is another cemetery in another spot in Elizabethtown. It's not that big, but it's oozing with history. In fact, Morgan's men were here and they shot the cannonball that we're going to see here in a little bit, and from one of the historic markers. This section of the Elizabethtown Cemetery, known as Confederate Place, honors the sacrifices of the Hardin County men who served in the war between the states, 1861 to 1865. A granite monument honoring the soldiers from Hardin County who fought for the Confederacy was erected in 1999 by the Sons of the Confederate Veterans. The stones erected in this section are either for those soldiers buried in unknown graves within the cemetery or noted in memory for those whose remains were never recovered from the battlefields where they fell. The 10-pounder Parrott rifle is a replica of the one placed on the road by White's Confederate battery during the battle, a trophy of their valor at Hartsville, Tennessee. It became a great pet of Morgan's men and was treasured as a mascot. The cannon was dedicated on April 27, 2002 by the city of Elizabethtown and the Sons of the Confederate and Union Veterans. It honors the soldiers and citizens who took part in the 1862 Battle of Elizabethtown. Also, another Helm connection in this cemetery, United Confederate Veterans and Daughters of the Confederacy. Years following the war, two organizations in Howdy County assisted veterans with pensions, relieved their wants, soothed their deathbeds, and marked their final resting places. They also supported destitute veterans and immortalized their heroic deeds with monuments and literary works. The Martin H. Coffer Camp, United Confederate Veterans, was formed on February 28, 1891, and the Ben Hardin Helm Chapter, number 126, Daughters of the Confederacy, was charted on August 14, 1897. Emily Todd Helm, wife of General Ben Hardin Helm and sister of Mary Todd Lincoln, named Mother of the Orphan Brigade by the soldiers, president of the Ben Hardin Helm Chapter, and first postmaster of Elizabethtown. Some interesting side notes there. Also, the Orphan Brigade. The Orphan Brigade, if you're not familiar with them, that's some really interesting stuff to read up on as far as the Civil War in Kentucky are concerned. And then right in front of this cemetery, there are three highway historic markers about the city and about this spot. And I'll read those to you. There's three forts. Elizabethtown began in 1780 when three forts were built by Samuel Haycraft Sr., Colonel Andrew Hines, and Captain Thomas Helm for common defense against Indians. The forts were 1 mile apart, the only settlements between Falls of Ohio and Green River. Hines laid out 30 acres for public buildings, 1793. In 1797, County Court established the town, named for Hines's wife. And another one, the Elizabethtown Battle. Confederate General John Hunt Morgan, on his second raid into Kentucky with 3,900 men, was met by 652 Union troops under Lieutenant Colonel H.S. Smith, December 27, 1862. Object of raid was destruction of L&N Railroad, main artery for USA troop movement south. Morgan surrounded town and placed artillery on the cemetery hill. Elizabethtown garrison was destroyed. Federals surrendered. And then there's another marker kind of in the same vein as that one. North of here, Morgan's raiders destroyed two of most important L&N Railroad trestles December 28, 1862, rendering line impassable for 2 months. Circling this area, they returned to Tennessee on January 2nd, 1863. In 11 days, they destroyed $2 million of U.S. property, wrecked L&N line from Munfordville to Shepherdsville, and captured, then paroled, 1,877 prisoners. And one more marker, Julius Rosenwald Fund. Founded in 1917 by Booker T. Washington's Tuskegee Institute and Julius Rosenwald, a Jewish businessman, philanthropist, and president of Sears Roebuck and Company. Fund provided for construction of 158 schools in Kentucky between 1917 and 1932 to offer quality education to African Americans. This led to education of over 500,000 students. So yeah, there's some more markers there, and now we're driving back to the square area. This is what I think of as downtown Elizabethtown. And there are a ton of historic markers here for what that's worth. And right up ahead of us, there's Vibe Coffee, a really nice coffee shop. Really, really roomy, nice place to sit and read and relax while you're in town. I like them a lot. They're a little pricey, to be honest, by any standard. But it's a nice independent coffee shop. They make good coffee. They're good people. They're there in Elizabethtown. They're doing a good service. And we're circling the block a couple times just to look around. But yeah, there's a lot of history here. There's several historic markers, and even though we're about to turn around a little bit and come back to this spot, I'm going to go ahead and just read a little bit to you, just so you have an idea of what's going on. And obviously, I wanted you to have a good look at everything around here. Oh, and by the way, just a quick mention. I wanted to say we're actually going to Back Home Restaurant, which is near downtown. It's a bit of an institution in E-Town, and it's they have really good food. I like getting a nice BLT, and they know how to make their BLT. So I wanted to mention that, but I also, and here in a little bit, we're going to come back and just kind of walk around downtown. But there's a ton of markers, and I wanted to go ahead and start just reading some of them to you. And I'm not even going to come close to reading all of them. There are markers on just about anything connected to Elizabethtown down here. And this is, again, just a nice spot to go. There's history, there's food, a good coffee shop, and this is just a nice area to be at. And like I mentioned, here in a little bit, I do film briefly, right, actually in one of the buildings we just went by on the right. There is the famous cannonball in a building in downtown Elizabethtown. There's a few other towns. I think Gettysburg has one. The little town in Tennessee where John Hunt Morgan was finally killed. They had there's a cannonball in one of their buildings, but they're rare. But it's kind of cool that there are some buildings that still have a cannonball in a building from the Civil War, and Elizabethtown can proudly claim that. And here is from a marker they have downtown about that cannonball. Christmas Raid, December 27, 1862. General John Hunt Morgan's raiders arrived in Elizabethtown, appearing on the brow of the hill that is now the city cemetery. The main objective of the Christmas raid was to burn two huge Louisville and Nashville Railroad trestles on Muldraugh Hill north of town. By destroying the trestles, Morgan hoped to relieve pressure on Confederate General Braxton Bragg's Army of Tennessee by cutting the flow of supplies to Union General William S. Rosecrans' army. Before moving on Muldraugh Hill, Morgan wanted to neutralize the Union force in Elizabethtown. The Confederates placed artillery on the hill and demanded the surrender of the Union garrison. They refused, and Morgan's artillery opened fire. The bombardment lasted 20 minutes. 107 rounds were fired upon the buildings in the town, killing and wounding several of the soldiers who had taken refuge there. One ball hit the Depp building, then located on the corner, lodging in the wall just under a third-story window. After the town surrendered, Morgan moved on Muldraugh Hill. Elizabethtown residents went to work repairing the damage inflicted by the missiles. In a 1932 paper, Miss Annie Norse explained the story of the cannonball. She wrote, "Many years after 1887, a fire destroyed that entire block and the cannonball fell with the wall. I asked the owners of the building to give me the ball, and they both kindly consented. I told the boys about it, that I would give 25 cents to the one who would find it and bring it to me. A lively scramble instantly ensued in the pile of hot bricks. I left them digging and went on home. In the afternoon, a man brought it out to me and demanded $5 for it. I told him it was already mine. After some hesitation, he decided to leave it for 50 cents, which I gave him. Many years after, I restored it to the bank, and they had it placed in the same spot as near as possible in the new building, where it is seen today." So, okay, actually, it is the cannonball, but it's in a different spot. So that's interesting. So yeah, that explains the cannonball. And right here, this is us kind of right as we're going into downtown. You saw that picture of, that's actually Thomas Lincoln and his wife. And there's a little marker there, and it's a little confusing. It says February 12th, 1809, February 12th, 2009. Dedicated in honor of the bicentennial observance of the birth of President Abraham Lincoln. Upon these stones stood the log house where the wedding vows of his father, Thomas Lincoln, and a good and kind stepmother, Sarah Bush Johnston, were exchanged on December 2nd, 1819, Elizabethtown, Kentucky. So that's some interesting stuff there for sure. And I'll try to read a few as we kind of circle around town here. I do want to read a few of the little highway markers they have, just because they're interesting. And again, there are several markers right through here talking about industry and everything going on in town. But here are a few of the kind of standard highway markers. Hardin County, formed from Nelson County by First Legislature 1792, named for Colonel John Hardin, veterans of Dunmore's War 1774, American Revolution, General Clark's Wabash Expedition, 1787, and Maumee Indian Campaign. 1790, murdered by Ohio Indians while U.S. peace envoyed them in 1792. In 1780, Elizabethtown settled by Samuel Haycraft, Thomas Helm, and Andrew Hines, for whose wife the town is named. And then another marker, General Custer here. Cavalry and infantry battalions under General George Custer assigned here 1871 to 1873 to suppress Ku Klux Klan and carpetbaggers, to break up illicit distilleries. Those gangs becoming inactive, he was sent to Chicago to maintain order after Big Fire. Returning, he led an active social life. In 1873, ordered to Dakota, ending in Custer's last stand, June 1876. And then another marker, Gallantry in Action. Sergeant George E. Larkin, Jr., a native of Colesburg, Hardin County, took part in Doolittle's raid on Japanese mainland, April 18, 1942. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross and decorated by the Chinese government. Won award for being first Kentuckian to bomb enemy capital. Famous raid boosted American morale. 6 months later, the 23-year-old was killed in Asia. So yeah, there's several interesting markers right around there, and we're just kind of walking around. Again, they had these cute little banners up talking about, famous people in history with links to Elizabethtown. And you can tell there's some work going on to some of these buildings. But this is just a really pretty downtown. It's nice to walk around. Some other pretty attractive buildings right up through there. Yeah, but thanks for hanging in there with me. I feel like I was reading fast a few times, trying to squeeze in all that information. But yeah, Elizabethtown's just a great town with a lot of history. And again, I know there's some stuff I didn't even cover here. But, especially with the Helm and the Mary Todd Lincoln connection to Lincoln, I've always appreciated that story of Helm, dying in battle at Chickamauga, and knowing that, there's Abraham Lincoln, literally fighting against his brother-in-law, and, there's a great story about him mourning that death. And that's something, that's the Civil War. And, but I think it speaks a lot about Lincoln, obviously, and about the Civil War too. But I love that story. And, obviously the Helm name is big in Kentucky, and especially there at the Civil War. So anyway, Elizabethtown, yeah, you can see there's some construction going on and some buildings getting renovated or redesigned. I could see a whole lot more happening down here, but there's quite a bit going on as it is. And again, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Jim Morado. Visit my blog at KentuckyTravels.blogspot.com. Thanks.